And I have the honor today to share with you my views on the gambling market. First of all, I will be addressing the renewed opinion on the gambling market by the State Secretary and its possible consequences, and you've heard a few in the previous presentation. I will also inform you of the changes that the KSA is going through and how protecting consumers is becoming increasingly important to us. And, of course, I will not miss out on the opportunity to issue some warnings. The fact that it's me addressing you perhaps also says something about the changes that the KSA has gone through in the past few months. We are increasingly engaging with the market, and the traditional distance between operators and the regulator seems to be narrowing. And, of course, we are still pursuing our own independent course, but your valuable insight certainly helps us strengthen our regulation. Last year, René Jansen stood where I'm standing now. And in my preparations for today's speech, I stumbled across his closing words for last year. And since I don't expect you to know all our speeches by heart, I will repeat them briefly. He said, "The sentiment in our society regarding gambling depends on the choices that you make as an industry. So please, do the right thing and put those safeguards against problem gambling in place, so that I can hand over the baton to my successor, Michel Groothuizen, with a clear conscience, knowing that he will be speaking to a room full of licensed operators again next year." I'm not Michel, but I am still facing a room full of licensed operators. So that part worked out well. But the first part resonated with me mostly. The sentiment about the market depends on the choices that you make. And we've seen that again in the past year. State Secretary Struiken presented a renewed vision on the gambling market last year. This vision is in line with a changing view on gambling that we also increasingly see in society as a whole. Where we first looked at gambling as a game with possible negative consequences, we are more and more considering it a high-risk product. The ministry even called its new vision a fundamental change in vision and direction. The main premise here is to protect all citizens against the negative effects of gambling, such as addiction or debt. This includes an extra focus on minors and young adults, as they are more vulnerable. This change of direction is partly driven by the idea that current policies do not protect people adequately. This simply means one thing: laws and regulations will become stricter, and operators' room for maneuver will be further restricted. There's talk of raising the minimum age to 21 for high-risk gambling. There's talk of overarching deposit limits, which you as a sector might applaud. But advertising for high-risk gambling may also be further restricted. And of course, when all these attentions were announced, you made sure your opinions were heard clearly. We legalized the online gambling market in the Netherlands because politicians believed that people will gamble anyway, in which case it is better if they can do so safely. If you look at the size of the illegal market, including in 2021, I'm quite willing to go along with that. So the initial priority was to establish an attractive legal market, where it would be worthwhile for legal operators to invest money in gaining market share. Operating legally has to be profitable. But politicians are increasingly backtracking on the premise, partly of what we see in the market at the moment. When I started as head of regulation just over 6 months ago, a new world opened up for me. After almost 20 years at the Authority for Consumers and Markets, and very at home in consumer protection in general, regulation is in my blood. But I didn't know all that much about the gambling market yet. That has changed, and I am still learning. I want to approach operators with an open mind. And I do believe that not all our communication needs to be doom and gloom. If we see operators develop good initiatives, I will be very willing and the first to mention these in our reportings as well. But sometimes even I can't make things appear better than they are. This year we went public with our first duty of care fine. We fined one operator 734,000 euros because young adults were able to gamble away thousands of euros without adequate intervention. That total lack of consideration for vulnerable players was at odds with the original approach of legislation, and for that reason the reins are now being tightened. The same goes for advertising. I still see far too often that the advertising rules are not properly followed. The subsequent outrage makes a total ban on advertising an increasingly realistic option. And it's still undesirable for us as an organization, but it is realistic. But as I've also indicated, not everything is doom and gloom. Our new online duty of care department has asked you as a market how you conduct final capacity tests under the new policy rule. This showed that there are operators who go beyond the rules to protect players. They either do not allow young adults to increase deposit limits or calculate a lower percentage if a player's monthly income is low. Taking that kind of extra measure can be far from advantageous for business operations, and it takes guts, and I do welcome that. Which I'm also very appreciative about is your cooperative attitude. We've been experimenting with roundtables over the past year, where we have had open conversations about different measures and their implementations. Those conversations were of great value to us. We understand that the imposed measures sometimes require adaptability, and that post-implementation there are obstacles and ambiguities that we did not anticipate. Being able to have open conversations about that helps us further strengthen our regulation. More frequent, we've had direct contact with operators in that context. When we come across things that we have questions about or that we are dissatisfied with, we engage immediately. I see that these talks have a lot of effect. Infringements are quickly stopped, and communicating openly about them sets an example for the rest of the market. That improved contact with the industry is part of the KSA's further professionalization into what we sometimes call a regulator 2.0, or maybe 3.0. We want to get rid of the image of the unreachable, rigid regulator, exclusively focused on infringements and fines, and move more and more towards an open and flexible organization that finds creative solutions to difficult problems. The conversations that we have with you are part of that, as is the recently started policy of communicating by name about the interventions that we take. The parties that have received less desirable attention due to that policy have all been very cooperative and see the added value of that process. A warning to one party now sets an example to another. In the light of our ministry's new priorities, the KSA has also taken on a greater role in consumer protection. An internal program to prevent gambling-related harm has been set up, which includes growing and further professionalizing loket kansspel, a very Dutch term, and setting up awareness campaigns on dangers of gambling. We continuously draw attention to Gokstop with targeted campaigns in order to raise awareness for the crux register for people who don't want to gamble anymore. And in the reorganization later this year that we're going through as an organization right now, we can make even greater strides in player protection. We will turn the gambling-related harm program into its own independent department. In other areas, we also complement our traditional regulatory tasks with innovative, creative projects. One example is tackling the illegal market, that I'm sure we'll be talking about more today. We see how the industry is joining hands to battle illegal operators. For example, with initiatives by affiliates to push out illegal advertisement that specially target vulnerable groups and to direct people to pages with information on addiction help. It's important to cooperate to battle the illegal market because, as you've also just heard, the channelization rate based on gross gambling revenue is worryingly low at around 50%. For every euro spent at the legal operator, €1 disappears into the pocket of illegal parties. Fortunately, player-based channelization is as high as ever at around 92%, but we do remain keen on developments in that area. Tackling the illegal market is therefore an undiminished high priority in our regulation. We are increasing our capacity with a new project where we are frustrating infrastructure around illegal operators. We do this by delving deeper into the techniques that these illegal parties use and then using them ourselves in creative ways. Whereas previously we focused on imposing fines and getting websites offline, we are now also looking more at websites promoting illegal offerings and ads for these types of parties on social media and in apps. We also cut off access to illegal gambling where possible by working more closely with service providers. And illegal gambling also simply starts with being able to deposit money. So we're also talking to the banks. Together, we are making unlicensed offers to Dutch players as unattractive as possible. And on top of that, we are working with the ministry to increase our possibilities to become even more effective. Finally, our evolution towards Regulator 2.0 will hopefully also lead to a lot of licensed holders 2.0 in the next licensing round in 2026 and beyond. Our colleagues are already talking to industry associations and to others about the potential challenges that you may face in these license applications. I want to stress that this is a process that we want to work through with you to make it as smooth as possible on both sides. At the same time, I would also like to stress that those of you who were previously deemed suitable to operate on the Dutch market are not automatically accepted as such in the next round. When assessing the applications, we take a look at previous behavior, good and bad. The KSA has stated more than once recently that some behaviors are unacceptable to us and could affect license renewal. These are not empty words on our part. In conclusion, I realize that the renewed vision on the gambling market does not always make it easier for you as operators. You have made your opinions clearly heard about the measures that we announced and the rise of the illegal market. The KSA is not blind to that. With the significant steps that we are now taking as an organization, we are making every effort to better protect consumers. We will do that by looking at enhancing the duty of care, by making consumers aware of the dangers of gambling and better informing problem players, and by cracking down harder on the illegal market. By focusing on those three pillars, we are working towards a stable, safe gambling market that is worthwhile for operators, but that also focuses on the safety of Dutch players, because that's our main priority. Or to quote last year's speech again, hopefully Michel will be standing here in a room full of licensed operators next year, and rest assured of our commitment to this, providing that at the same time we can trust you to put your best foot forward. Protecting players was the reason for building a licensed gambling market, so keep prioritizing that very thing. Thank you.